Welcome back to the MindCrack server. Actually, let me make sure that's pretty quick. Oh, I was!
No! Alright, let's do that again. Come on, lightning. It's gotta be perfect. Lightning. See what I go through. Welcome back on the MindCrack SMP server. It's been a while since I've been on this server. It's been a while since I've recorded, actually. I haven't played any Minecraft in the last month, other than UHC. So I'm glad to be back. I have moved. Things are well. I am settled. It's time to get busy. So I don't really remember what I was working on other than... Oh, I might have enough iron right now. I still need to finish up with the all of my buckets of milk. I need lots of buckets of milk. So let me do some inventory management and make a bunch of buckets, and then we will head out. Alright, so I've created 32, 35 buckets. I think I'm going to need a lot more than that, so I'm going to take this with me. But I'm going to do it on that side so I don't create too many buckets. Oh yeah, we have a sunrise. Don't want to create too many buckets and waste the iron, because this is all the iron that I have. So do I have a cart? I don't. Let's grab a cart and then let's head out. Alright, I got my buckets of milk. I'm going to head back to spawn really quick. And we're going to place these in the monument. So while I'm running around doing this tedious work, which I really need a cow closer. I don't think there's any animals in Spawn Village anymore. But while we're running around doing this stuff, I was talking to somebody about gaming and when it all started for them. And it really made me think about when it all started for me. And it's pretty crazy because it started for me in the 1970s. Oh, this month last month I turned 40, so I've been alive for 4 freaking decades. That's so crazy. Where should I start? Let's just start right here. So in the 70s, my dad, I don't know where he got it. I don't remember him buying it or anything. It was just sort of, I think, something that was laying around. But he had a Tandy... Was it TRS-80, I think? It was basically a little keyboard. It was probably the size of a netbook in modern day, or like a iPad. It wasn't the size of a regular keyboard, but it was like it looked like a keyboard, but it was more than a keyboard. It was actually a computer, and you hooked this little keyboard thing up to a television. It's so crazy thinking about how much technology has changed. Because I know there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this video that were not alive in the 70s, that were not alive in the 80s. Some of you may not even have been alive in the 90s. So to hear this stuff, it's going to sound probably strange to you. But you hooked this little keyboard up to a television, and that was your monitor. And then you could basically write your own programs and all this stuff. The funny thing is, though, is when you would want to save the program, like today in modern computers, you save it to a hard drive. Well, back then there was no such thing as a hard drive. When you wanted to save your data, you had to actually hook up a cassette tape recorder, which as crazy as this sounds, a lot of people probably don't even know what a cassette tape is because they don't make them anymore. But you would plug in your cassette tape recorder, push down the record and the play button, and then save your data. It's so crazy and strange to think about, but that's the way that you saved your programs. So, I always run the wrong way when I come out. The computer actually came with a little book, and the book had all these programs inside of it, so you could become a programmer and make your own computer programs. And I think the programming language was BASIC. It was really simple. Like you could, like for example, here would be a program. You could type 10, print, Rob is awesome, and then 20, go to 10, and it would repeat that on your screen. Rob is awesome all over your screen. It's really cool. But they had these really elaborate programs, and they were considered games. They were text-based. But I spent like probably, I want to say like a week copying all the lines of code in this book to make a program. And it was silly. Like it was like I don't even know. It was really silly. Like it would do things like, please enter your age. And then you'd enter your age and it'd be like, you'll be 23 in the year 2000 or whatever. It was really, really silly, the stuff that you would do. But that was the start of computer programming or using computers in my life. And right after that, I remember that I discovered the Pong machine, which I believe was made by Atari, but it was, again, sort of the same thing. It was like a console, but you plugged in this console to your television. It had 2 paddles, and it was basically like, a really basic form of tennis. You'd have to make sure that the ball wouldn't go off the screen. You could play against another person. Really, really, really simple. Like, basically, whenever you learn how to do programming today for games, they will have you make games like that because they're so simple and basic now. Back then, it was amazing. Okay, let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. Wait, did I just do that wrong? Nope, it's 29. Okay, so let's go make 30 buckets. And then after the Pong, I remember it's really fuzzy because as you get older, it's like your brain makes space for new memories by clearing out memories when you're really young. Because I was like 7 or 8, so I remember it, but I don't remember it all in details. But I remember for some reason, and I don't know why, but I remember my dad brought home an Atari 2600. And the reason why I say I don't know is because we weren't very well off. We didn't have a lot of money, and something like that. I mean, it was like, I think it was $199, which for the 80s, that's a lot of money. And I remember being really surprised, but he came home with an Atari 2600, and he had Pac-Man, Defender, a couple other games. And that's really what started all of the gaming for me. I played the Atari like crazy. I loved Frogger and Defender, and I loved Adventure, Berserk. Really, really cool console. It was very basic again. You had the console, a cartridge, and then a joystick with one big red button. Oh, how games have changed. But that's where it started for me, and that was like the Atari I was in 3rd grade, so it was like 79, 80, 1980, I think. It's really crazy. And then I remember, I think it was, I was in 6th or 7th grade. My dad remarried, and my stepbrother got a Nintendo Entertainment System for his birthday or for Christmas or something. And we played lots of Super Mario Brothers and Kung Fu and Excite Bike and Metroid. Oh, I loved Metroid so much. Also on the Nintendo, I used to play Kid Icarus and Karnov and Rygar and Strider. What other games did I play on that system? I loved Metroid. I played Metroid a lot. Marble Madness and Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Of course, Legend of Zelda. And then... Oh, I did it again. Crap. By the time I started high school, that was 89, 90, I think. 89? 88? I don't know. It was in the 80s, late 80s. I got into hanging out with friends and driving and girls and all kinds of other stuff that took me away from gaming for a while. And then when I got out of high school, I went to the military. And in the military, my first duty station was in Europe, and it snowed a lot. I was in Germany, and it snowed a lot in the winters, and we literally would get stuck inside with nothing to do. And because I was in the military and I had all this money, being a young guy that was single and had no bills, what did I do? I blew all my money on consoles. I actually bought a Super Nintendo, and I used to play SimCity and R-Type and I actually can't remember. Spy Hunter. What else did I play? I don't know. I didn't play the SNES as much. But also, once I had been in Europe for a while and I had all this money and I didn't, you go out and you spend money and you go drinking, but unless you get crazy, you end up saving a lot of money. And I went out and bought a $3,000 computer system. My very first computer, well, besides the TRS-80, it was an actual computer. It was by AST, which I don't even know if they still exist. But it was a 486 DX100. The fastest computer you could buy, and it cost $3,000. Ridiculous. Well, funny thing is... Well, I'll get to that in a moment. But when I got the computer, it came with a bunch of games. It had King's Quest. Oh my gosh, I need more buckets than I thought. King's Quest and Zork and all these things. This was in 92. And I ended up... I don't remember what other games I played. I remember the King's Quest for sure. But I don't remember any of the games that I played. But late 94, I had Windows 3.1.1, which ran on top of DOS, and I was trying to clean up... my computer came with all this crap. It had, like, Lotus 123 and all this stuff that I didn't want. And so I just started deleting things because I didn't know any better. And I ended up making it so the computer could not boot. And I was freaking out. I was like, I paid, $3,000 for this thing, and I broke it. It doesn't work. And I didn't know how to fix it. And this was, well before the internet, so you couldn't just, go online and figure out how to fix it. And I remember I had this person that I worked with in the military. I'm going to have to go back and I can't believe it. Maybe not. I had this guy that I worked with who was, a computer genius, computer geek. He loved tinkering around with computers in his free time. And he's like, oh, I could totally fix your computer. Just bring it out to my house this weekend and we'll work on it. So I bring out my computer, and while he's working on it, he's letting me play on his computer. And he had this game called Spear of Destiny, which was, I don't know if it was a spin-off or if it was an expansion pack for the original, but it was Wolfenstein 3D. One of the first, major shooters, FPS games that I ever played and that I had ever seen. And I got so sick from playing that game from motion sickness, but I was so hooked that I went out and bought the game, played the game all the time. I loved it, and that was really the time when I became a PC gamer, and I just didn't look back at consoles. I owned a PlayStation later on in life, the PlayStation 1. I had the original Xbox, and I had a Dreamcast. I actually really loved the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast was awesome. But console gaming just never really did it for me like playing on a PC with a keyboard and mouse. And that really was when it all started for me. 94, playing Wolfenstein. I probably played it for eight or 9 hours with motion sickness, and I just didn't care. I really enjoyed playing that game. And that's what started console or PC gaming and FPS gaming for me in early 94. And when I came back to the States, I ended up selling my $3,000 paperweight computer, and I moved back to the States, and the Pentium had just came out in 95, and Windows 95 just came out, which was so much better than Windows 3.1. And the first computer that I bought when I got back, it came with all kinds of games on it, but when I bought it, I picked up this disc, and it was, I think it was $1, and it was Doom Shareware version 666. And that was really it right there. Playing Doom, it cemented my love for PC gaming, and I remember I played that game so much, and we would actually shut down the office. When I was in the military, we'd shut down the office during lunch, and we would set up our computers and hook them all together, and we would deathmatch all through lunch. So awesome. The 90s. And then from Doom, I discovered Duke Nukem 3D. And it was really the game that made me learn all about networking so that I could play it with my brother-in-law, and this was when I was married. We would actually take all of the furniture out of our living room and set up, 4 or 5 workstations with computers in the living room, and I would have friends come over, friends from the military, and we would sit there and we'd play Duke Nukem and Doom, and actually the Quake demo came out a little bit after that, the Quake test, and we would play that stuff all weekend long. It was crazy. And that's what started the LAN party phase of my life. I loved LAN parties so much. This is so embarrassing that this happened, but hey, it happens. When I first got on the internet, it was on that Pentium, the new Pentium that I got. It came with AOL and CompuServe and all these things, already pre-installed on the desktop. And I had no idea what the internet, it wasn't even called the internet, it was called the World Wide Web. And I had no idea really what I was getting into, but I was a, young single guy with a computer and all this money, and I'm like, what do I care if it's, $5.95 an hour? Back then, the internet was not, it was not unlimited. You had to pay by the hour, and I think it was like $5.95 an hour for AOL. I remember signing up and logging in, and I was just like, wow, I don't even know what to do. There's so much stuff that I could look at, and this was back in the, this was 96, 95, 96. This was actually 95. I remember it was in 95. there wasn't really much on the internet. There was lots of information from like universities and stuff, but it was nothing like it is now. There wasn't websites that were, purely made for entertainment value. Let's put it that way. So I need 1, 2, 3. I think I'm almost done. Yeah, I need 3 more and I'm done. Sweet. But I remember on AOL there was a game that you could play. It was sort of they used to have these things called MUDs, multi-user dungeons. And this was kind of like a MUD. MUDs were normally text-based. So it would be like you would move your little cursor and it would basically tell you, you've walked into a room and there's a bucket in the corner and it smells funny. What do you want to do? And then you'd like figure out what you want to do. It was very basic, but AOL had a game called Neverwinter Nights, and this game ended up being recreated later as an actual 3D game. But back then it was text-based with a 2D interface, so you could move around a little cursor and all this. But the thing about it was multiplayer. It was really what you would call like an MMO. It wasn't like Ultima, which came along later, but it was a multiplayer game on AOL, and I got hooked on that game, and it was really, really fun. The only problem is back then when you had dial-up internet, you had these things called pops, and sometimes your pop was close, sometimes it wasn't. Well, I was in a military base, but I was in a really small town, and at the end of the month I get my phone bill, and my phone bill is $800. So not only was I paying $5.95 a month for internet, it was not a local call. It was a long distance call. So I got screwed. The funny thing is, though, I was so hooked on playing that game and being on the internet that I did it again the next month. I spent so much money on gaming on the internet in the 90s. It's crazy. Sweet. So, cheers to all of you who donated. Thank you very much. That was not as painful as I thought it was going to be. It's awesome. So from that, from the AOL experience, then that's when I actually moved on to Duke Nukem, and Quake was a demo that came out, and Quake was supposed to be, the game that changed everything. And it literally was. Like, people nowadays people don't like Quake anymore, which just boggles my brain, because if they really understood how many games came from that game and what gaming was like before Quake and what Quake has actually done for gaming, it's just crazy. It's crazy that people don't love that game. But it did change everything. And from that point, it was... that's when it started. I mean, after that, it was just game after game after game. Like, there was so many... Like, Rise of the Triad and Shadow Warrior and Hexen and Heretic, and there was so many games that I discovered that were, multiplayer compatible. You could play them on a LAN, you could play them on the internet if you had the right setup. It was really crazy. The world that opened up before my eyes. Okay, we've got all the buckets here. We are completely done. Thank you. Oh no, we're not. How did I miss... 3 more. Okay, let's go get 3 more then. Mech Warrior. I played Mech Warrior a lot online. But just to give you guys kind of any of you who were not around in that era and weren't actually PC gaming back then, let me just give you an example of what it was like to play Duke Nukem online. So, Duke Nukem didn't include TCP/IP. That wasn't even something that... Quake was actually one of the first games that I remember shooters, that is, that had TCP/IP support. Which, if you don't know what that is, that's how you get on the internet and you do things. TCP/IP, IP address. You know all this stuff. You just don't know that you know it. So anyway, Duke Nukem didn't have TCP/IP support. It only had IPX support. IPX was not something you could do over the internet. So to play Duke Nukem, you had to actually pay for another piece of software called Kali. And Kali was created specifically so you could play IPX games over the internet, like Command and Conquer, and there was a bunch of games that didn't have TCP/IP support back then. I think MechWarrior didn't have TCP/IP support either. But so then you would have to load this program, Kali. There was actually a couple of them. There was 10, Duango, which was the id Software set up for Doom. It's called Doom Wide Area Network Gaming Online or something, Duango. 10, there was, what was the other one called? There was one, M-Player. There was a bunch of them, but Kali was the one that people used for Duke Nukem and a couple other games. So you'd have to boot up Kali, find somebody who wanted to play Duke Nukem, and then connect your games together. Now, when you would connect to another person in Duke Nukem, you would have to sit there completely still for at least a minute. Yes, 60 seconds. And if either one of you moved, the games would get out of sync. Now, this was on a 14.4 modem, so, I mean, you can't even imagine how slow the internet was back then. We have it so good now, we just don't realize it. But, yeah. 14.4 modem, it took about a minute to sync up. Nobody could move. If somebody moved, you would have to leave the game, find somebody, start all over. When you didn't move, and it was time to go, you could really only play 1 versus 1, and it was still laggy. But we would do it every night, all night. I would get out of work, I would come home, I would connect to the internet with a modem. You would have to keep reconnecting so that you would get the highest connection possible. It was so crazy, the stuff we'd have to go through for gaming back in the day. I think it was 97. Pretty sure it was 97. 97, I got my first cable modem. I'm looking at this trying to figure out what I want to do with it next. Once I got a cable modem, this was when Quake was already out, Unreal Tournament was out, Unreal was out. Once I got the cable modem, it kind of changed everything. LAN parties became less frequent. People became, I don't know, back in the day when not everybody could get on the internet, people were not jerks normally. Because when it took you, 10 to 20 minutes just to get connected, and then another half hour to 45 minutes to find somebody, and then connect and sit there and not move and all this crap, when you finally got into a game, you just wanted to have fun. You didn't want to be a jerk. And when the cable modem came around, it kind of changed everything. People, literally, just about anybody could go down to a store, buy a game, install it, click multiplayer, and they're online. That's good that it became so much easier, but because it was so easy, it really changed the attitude of people that would play, and it also introduced a whole new group of people that didn't have to go through all that trouble to get connected to PC gaming, and it really was the downfall of gaming online. I mean, as far as the way that people act. I mean, you could see now whenever you play Call of Duty or Quake or any of these games, people just, their attitude sucks, and there's people trolling and just doing things like team killing just to be a jerk, and none of that stuff existed back then. Once I got on the cable modem, it's sort of, everything changed. LAN parties became less frequent, which was sad, and the attitude of gamers changed. But you could do so much more. You could download custom maps, and you could, play with a 150, 200 ping, which was insanely better than 300 or 400 ping. And look at us now. Now I ping over 30 and I complain. It's pretty crazy to think that I have been gaming for 30 years. Wow, that just boggles my brain. So this episode was full of some busy work. My previous episode was caving. But I'm happy to tell you that my next MindCrack episode, which will be next week, is going to have a very cool surprise for you. It will be a collaboration, and it will be the start of a project that will span several episodes, depending on how well I work. But I won't spoil that for you. I will just leave you hanging. But I appreciate you watching. I appreciate your patience through all of my bumps in life, my moving, and everything else that goes on. I really appreciate all the support, and it's been an exciting ride, and it's not over. So thank you for watching. Tune in next time. I will see you when I see you. Is that Generic B's line? Crap.